This is Matt for Boxing Social in association with Empire Fight Store, Our King's Competitions. We're back. Gareth A. Davies. Gareth, before we talk all things boxing, how's things, my mate? It's been a while since we had a catch up.
Very good, thank you. We're right into the thick of it now. I think you've been into the thick of it in America, your first America trip of the year, I noticed.
Yeah,
And so many busy days to come ahead. Am I seeing you in Riyadh?
you are, of course.
Yeah, that's going to be a very busy week. It's just boxing's kicked off already. There's loads of things that are rumored, things that are building up, fights made till September, um, heavyweight division kind of stuff. Chisora this weekend, the last dance or the penultimate dance. I'll be there in Manchester. I'll probably see you there. It's all kicking
You
off.
will. Yeah, it's been you know what? It's been a really interesting and busy start, and I thought we'd chop this up, start talking about what I saw over the last 2 weeks out there, and then I landed yesterday, and I'm seeing news of fights potentially made, thinking, what the hell is going on? Let's start with the main topics, the main rumours, and I don't know what's confirmed and what's not, but it seems to me from everything that's been said online Canelo and Crawford is agreed for September in Las Vegas, from what I understand, and it seems to be coming from quite reputable sources. I think the Ring magazine, I think, dropped that one. Since then, I'm seeing Canelo will fight Jake Paul in May. I don't know the validity of it just because I've come back. I'm a bit jet lagged. I've not seen the strength behind that. But what are your thoughts on Canelo Jake Paul?
Well, first of all, I think you can say that Terence Crawford and Saul Canelo Alvarez in September, if it's being broken by the Ring magazine, you know who's brokering the deal. In
Yes.
the background, it's Turkey Al Sheikh. It's a fight on the card that was on the cards. It's a fight we've talked about for a year and a half. It's a fight that I pressed when Terence Crawford couldn't find the right opponents after Errol Spence and looked so good. And also after Israel Madrimov, I remember pushing for that fight. It's great that they've taken it on board. It's great that Turkey has got it over the line. That to work backwards. Yes, I've heard and seen the reports overnight about Jake Paul and Saul Canelo Alvarez in May. Obviously, there's a May date that Canelo always fulfills in Las Vegas, as well as the September date, traditionally the biggest pay-per-views. I don't see it myself. I don't see him having that fight in the build-up to a fight with Terence Crawford. I don't see Crawford fighting. However, if Turkey's got Netflix involved and there's a kind of move going on, and he does seem to work with everyone, and no one's out of the picture with him. If he's working with Netflix on this, and Netflix might be showing the Crawford Canelo fight as well later in the year, I'm presupposing this.
Yes.
Those kind of things work in machination together. But at the moment, I'm very skeptical about Canelo and Jake Paul in May.
So what I was reading, I think, was a combination of Prime Video coming together, PBC being involved, and that fight would take place. Now, I think when you look at Canelo and Jake Paul, I can't even believe this.
Which fight on Prime Video?
The Jake Paul and Canelo fight,
Canelo.
because obviously PBC work with Prime Sport Video.
With
That's
Prime, yeah, with Amazon Prime, yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Well, that's viable as well, but I could see Turkey working with them as well.
Yeah, of course.
It's the last piece in the jigsaw that he's not working with, isn't it, really?
Yeah. Do you see the chance of that happening, if it doesn't happen in May, happening after Crawford? Do you think Canelo looks at that and goes, maybe I have one last dance and use that as a mega cash out kind of thing?
Yeah, especially if he loses to Crawford, which is possible. Crawford could win that fight. It's a big ask for him, but he's got the skills and the mental capacity, the physicality as well to win that fight. But he's got to take a blueprint from what Floyd Mayweather did to a very young Canelo, and what Dimitri Bivol did to an undersized Canelo. Obviously, is that 2 years ago now? It is. It's 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So, Canelo, you say cash out. Um, I spoke to him at the Ring Magazine Awards, and he said he's not finishing the sport anytime soon. I also spoke to Showtime Sean Porter on Monday at Talk Sport, and he said he really, obviously, his career ended with a stoppage, his first ever stoppage. He was knocked down twice by Terence. Believes that Terence has got all the wherewithal to deal with Canelo. Canelo's not a massive man, remember. He's broad and
Hmm.
thick set. And every time I've been around Terence recently, he's growing in stature. I know I'm not answering your question here
No.
particularly, but the thing is all the thing is in the world right now, all parties could work together. Canelo is definitely talking to Turkey, which he wasn't before, and that was one of the things that came out of the Ring Magazine Awards a couple of weeks back.
Hmm.
Um, and obviously, all the parties were here. Terence flew in late after the awards, including Ryan Garcia and Devon and Bill Haney were trying to call Ryan Garcia out into a street fight at one point. But one of my mates from Brendan's security team was looking after them. And I'm glad the way he chaperoned Ryan. He'll remain nameless for now because he did a
Yeah.
fantastic job on that. You know him as well.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I think all these fights are lining up. We've got the lineup of Ryan Garcia and Devon Haney in semi-finals and then finals. You can't rule out that Canelo will fight Jake Paul in May, but at the moment, I'm slightly disbelieving of it because of the skit from Logan and Jake,
Hmm.
which was for their reality TV series when we thought they were going to fight each other for about 24 hours. Mom was never going to let them do that.
They were never doing that. They're never fighting each
I
other.
was interested though.
Oh, we all are. When they put something out, it does let your mind wander. I think the PBC have got a hold on the T-Mobile for Canelo's date, which leads me to think I thought the natural fight for him, especially if he's waiting for a Crawford in September, would maybe to go and pick up his IBF strap that he vacated, and I think Skull picked up. Maybe a natural progression to pick it up. I mean, belts at this stage of his career, I'm sure they're not as prevalent, and it's more about the size of the event, the package, and the money. But that would maybe be the natural step, I would say, in preparation for a Crawford in September. That's just the sort of business side of me thinking.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
All his events are mega fights, Matthew. They all are now. I mean, he's a huge figure. When you think 30 million Mexicans watch him fight, what's going to be
oh,
interesting in September is what the pay-per-view numbers will be and what the charge will be in America for pay-per-view for Canelo and Crawford, because they're going to earn mega bucks for that fight. To get those two together, to get Canelo to fight Crawford and put his legacy on the line is an enormous thing. I think we're looking at those guys sharing 100 million US dollars together, you know?
definitely. Um, in terms of forget predictions for a minute, I asked a few people this, so I want your opinion. Where does Terence Crawford sit? And he already sits on the top table. He's a certified Hall of Famer, I think, legend of the game. If he beats Canelo Alvarez, where does he sit in that sort of all-time list? Is he on that
Well, he's a
top
modern
table?
great. He's a modern great with Floyd Mayweather. There's an argument that he might have beaten Floyd Mayweather at welterweight, or at least given him a very, very hard night. They probably have needed two fights, because remember Mayweather came up to welterweight, rather like Crawford has from lightweight all the way up. I remember him all those years ago against Ricky Burns in Glasgow on a
Yeah,
great night. I think it was Glasgow. It's either
it,
Glasgow or Edinburgh.
I'm pretty
Uh,
sure. I'm pretty sure it was.
it was
Glasgow.
something Hall, Reed Hall. Was it Reed Hall? I know. Well, I was there covering it anyway, and he just amazed us with his skills, mesmerizing skills.
Yeah, he's
He's a
I
modern great. He's already a modern great, whatever he achieves against Canelo, and he is undersized. I
mhm.
do think he can do it, but he's got, as I say, he's got to take a leaf out of the blueprint, or certainly find the blueprint, watch the blueprint of Canelo being beaten by Mayweather and Bivol.
Do you have concerns for Jake Paul if he fights Canelo? In all
No,
seriousness,
because no, because it'll look like an exhibition anyway.
do you think Canelo takes it easy on him? As in, do you
Prob well,
think?
he needs to, otherwise he'll knock him out.
Well, that's what I'm saying because like I look at that and think, we know what you get with the Mike Tyson fight, but you're fighting an active, hungry Canelo Alvarez, and I think almost you've got to hope that Canelo Alvarez, and this is all with respect to Jake Paul, just talking about genuine levels. I look at that and go, when he wants that fight to end, that fight ends.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, we're not talking about a 58-year-old man. We're talking about a guy who is
Pound for pound, still up there
number
in the top.
six for me. Well, he's number six for me. In my pound for pound list at the moment, it goes Alexander Usyk, Noya Nui, Terence Crawford, Artur Beterbiev, Dimitri Bivol, and Canelo. Those are my top six.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I couldn't argue with them either way. I think if you've got Usyk pound for pound, Crawford pound for pound, to a degree anyway, I don't think you can really argue with either
Well,
of
I
them.
mean, the whole thing about pound for pound, Matthew, is that you've got to argue because no one agrees. Certainly on the, some people won't agree. Usyk is number one. Other people will say Noya Nui has fought facile opponents. Well, Eddie Hearn would say that, wouldn't he? In the last couple of fights, Eddie wanted him removed from the pound for pound list. I
Well,
even called him deluded for that on one interview, and he hasn't come
he,
back at me. So I'm
well,
quite pleased.
so when I spoke to him in Vegas, his big thing was so nobody at this point midweek had asked him about Inoue, and obviously after his victory, and I was like, I've got to ask him this because he desperately wants the Akmaled. I don't want to say his name right. Uh,
Akhmadaliev.
Akmadaliev fight to happen, which yeah, fair enough. I think he's a good fight.
And he's a super bantam, so he's only standing up for his fighter
No,
because
no,
Noya is
exactly.
going to move up to featherweight.
And
It's going to happen.
and his argument was, look, he's been mandated now numerous times. Watch, he'll vacate the belt. And then it went from that to after the fight, after the Pacheco fight, he doubled
Yeah.
down again and was like, remove him from the list. And I'm like, why are you? I was like, you serious? He's like, yeah, you just take him out because he's avoiding fighting him. But what do you make of that and them comments? Does he believe that? Is he doing? He's obviously doing his job as a promoter, but what do you make of it?
Well, you've asked me and you've answered it. He did that job as his promoter. He's doing the right thing, but I just think he went a step too far in saying Noya Nui has been doing facile defenses. Yes, they've been. We don't love our fighters enough when they are. We want them to have a hard time all the time, and he is an extraordinary fighter. Like I said, I don't. I understand why Eddie was doing it, but the step too far was say should be removed from the pound for pound list. It's a mythical list anyway. What I want to talk to you about, you've been in Vegas for 2 weeks, haven't
I
you?
have, yeah.
So I want to steer this conversation for a moment towards how it feels in America. And I think you were one of the few to travel from over here for those events.
Well,
I had bare knuckle going on in Cardiff here that I was working on last
I've seen
weekend.
that.
I love it. I think it's amazing. Um, Backyard Brawl Extreme 36 with Dada 5000 there and all the guys, Greg and Mike Vasquez, the owner, and Jim and Joe, the guys that set up the UK one that they've linked to now. And the fights, amazing. Barry Jones, not the Barry Jones we know, but Barry
Yeah.
Jones, bare knuckle royalty. It was amazing. I love doing the role I do there. Sometimes it's comms, but other times I'm doing the post-fight interviews in the Trigon. And they've all got so much adrenaline. They're trying to pull the mic off you and speak, which you never do. You never let go of the mic. I've learned to not wear a white shirt as I did last time because it
Blood
just
everywhere.
gets so blood stained. I mean, it literally is blood on your notebook, on your notes, Trigon side or ring side. But what I watched from here
Hmm.
is that what I was fascinated because you were over there and you were one of very few over there from our side of the pond
Yeah.
was is there a buzz about what's happening in boxing? I know I'm turning it back on you, but is there a
No.
buzz over there for what's going on? Because we feel the buzz here, and Turkey has a great relationship with the UK and
Yeah.
British promoters, and obviously some of the American promoters, Oscar De La Hoya and Bob Arum. But is there a feeling that wow, we're going into a halcyon period?
It's difficult because I always feel in America, because in the UK, I think football's probably the number one sport, closely followed by boxing. I feel like there's always a big push around boxing when everything happens, and obviously Turkey's influence. In America, there is that much going on where sometimes I feel like I don't know if it's always appreciated about the period that you were coming into. But I have to say, from the 2 weeks I had there, the two different shows. I think we've got to understand um, Pacheco's a great fighter coming through. It was a good card, Andy Cruz, etc. But they were two completely
Next gen show.
kind,
Yeah,
kind of, yeah. But we've seen the progression of Pacheco, and it was a really good card, top to bottom. Mercado on the fight. There's a lot of good fights on that show. But then when you went to the Benavidez fight,
big.
I have to say, yeah, PBC have done an excellent job with him, and
They do, and that's the point. They have very big cards, and I think they need to be on board. And they do great things to their fighters. Look what they do for Javante. Look what Showtime Sean Porter said this to me. Al Heyman and that group. They make big fights for and they resonate in America. Because here's the thing: Canelo and Crawford are
yeah,
mainstream stars in the US.
they are.
Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia are mainstream stars in the US. Devin Haney's a mainstream star in the US.
Mm-hmm.
Outside that, maybe Tio Lopez makes a bit of noise. Outside that, they aren't crossover mainstream stars. A lot of the American fighters have got the same problem that Dalton Smith and Adam Azim have got. Not a problem, but they're in the same place as where Adam Azim and Dalton Smith are at the moment, where they're not quite on the lips of casual sports fans yet.
No, I agree. But I think I look at a guy like
casual boxing fans. I mean,
I agree. Fans. I look at a guy like even David Morrell as well. I have to say, shout out to him. He was very valiant in defeat. But
Lewis DeCuba for selling it all week. And I know Lewis for years. He's brilliant, isn't he?
Let me tell you.
You know he managed Roberto Duran, don't you?
I do. Yes, I do. He mentioned it. I think the good thing for me was Benavidez after it. Obviously, he's in a position now where he's potentially going to fight the winner of Bivol and
Beterbiev. If
Benavidez
if Bivol wins.
Yes, and I think that was pleasing. And I don't know whether there's a feeling that it's not that they won't get involved with the whole shift in Riyadh, because I think they still have that big thing of, look, we're a big draw over here. We know how to do things in the States. And I think you've got to look at a guy like Al Heyman and say, when you look at the last 20, 30, 40 years in boxing, look at the size of the events they put on. And people always have questions, I think, about sometimes PBC, and you see the schedule come out from UK and it's months in advance, and they just drop these little things in every now and again, and they feel huge. And that had a big
I agree with you. I agree with that. But there isn't Frank Warren presence, or there isn't an Eddie Hearn presence. Sam does a great job for them, but he's not.
It's Tom Brown
house, is he?
Yeah, it's over there. So I speak to them, and they
You'll
don't
have spoken to Sam about this. Yeah.
Sam, I spoke. Well, not this time round, but over there it's Tom Brown and TGB who do the promotional side of it. Yeah. But they're not. Get me in front of camera, rah, rah, rah.
No, they're not front of house.
They don't. They let Leonard Ellaby's very good for it. I think when he's over there, he tends to do a very good job at that.
But he wasn't there for this one, was he?
He wasn't, no. But like,
and Matt, it's noticeable, you see, because what happens, he's so adept, Leonard, at being on stage and saying the right thing in the moment to make stuff viral. Thank God for Lewis DeCuba getting stuck into Benavidez, because that was the viral stuff from the press conferences.
Yeah.
Because Morrell is a gentleman. So's Benavidez. He's handsome. They're both huge 175s, by the way. And what I'll say about them, I still think, a great fighter that it was as well, I still think Beterbiev and Bivol are inhabiting a slightly different plane to Morrell, Benavidez, and you'll have thought this as well, Buatsi and Yard. Why on earth aren't we fucking seeing Morrell and Benavidez being pitched together with Buatsi and Yard? Because they're all great fights.
I mean,
you
that
must
could
have
happen.
Thought it.
I did, but I think Benavidez is on a different, and this is no disrespect to Anthony Yard.
Yeah,
I think Benavidez is on a different trajectory, and that's not to say Anthony Yard can't get there. That's to say that he's operating now on different levels. And I think for them to take them fights, and because PBC sent a thing about predictions, and I'm not a big fan of doing them, but I gave the opinion, two guys in the primes. You know, Morrell coming from that Cuban style, that boxing
Mm.
setup, very confident coming into the fight, as dynamite in his left hands, and you're thinking, wow, Benavidez is taking this fight. Benavidez after the fight, and what I like about him, he says, I want them all. He says, I'm not interested in doing this. I want to make big fights. My name's in
Yeah.
lights. My market is here in the United States of America. Not to say that he won't go, but he's saying, look, but I've built something over here now. The attendance was
You're
fantastic.
right. He's on the cusp
He's
of
nearly
crossing
there.
into that mainstream. Like I said, there's a possibility, Finn.
But
So it was a good 2 weeks in Vegas then,
I
in America.
yeah, kind of biased from me, but when I grew up, I'm brought up on the Floyd Mayweather, watching on YouTube, the
Yeah.
MGM Grand, and whenever I go
I
there, it
know. I was
feels
traveling there all that period, and it's
exactly.
still my favorite, the MGM Grand in
Yeah,
America.
you go.
Studio A and B.
Fuck me.
It's
Yes.
being in there, Radio Row, all that stuff's fantastic.
Yeah, and to speak to guys like I had the pleasure of speaking to a guy like Brian Custer who works a lot with the PBC fighters, and
Yeah.
you know what, he speaks so eloquently, and he spoke about like the time he spent with Javante, and we touched on that. We also Top Rank as well did a media day with Keyshawn Davis, who was in fine form. There'll be an interview coming out with him on Boxing Social next week
He
before his
fights on
fights.
Friday, doesn't he?
He
As does Jared
fights,
Anderson.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Baranchik.
And Xander Zayas and others. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean Xander Zayas as well. For people who don't know, he's a terrific young fighter as
Yes.
well.
You and I have been around him a couple of years now.
Yeah, people need to get to know. But for me, Keish
Puerto Rican, the finest Puerto Rican fighter, and he's got the support
is,
of people like Miguel Cotto. He's been brought through brilliant. He's middleweight, isn't he now?
think so. Yeah,
Being
middleweight. But
brought through brilliant, super welter middle, being brought through brilliantly by Bob Arum. What is he? 20-0 now,
yeah,
21-0,
and
something like that.
there's Keyshawn as well against Baranchik's a good fight,
Yeah,
and he
yeah.
spoke very openly about the Andy Cruz rivalry, and he made some terrific points because the week before Andy Cruz was coding him, calling him his son all week. But you know, it's I think America's on the cusp of like a nice little sort of revolution. You know, that sort of wheels turning now, and the young fighters are coming through. Shakur as well. Managed to speak to him again. He's in a terrific place ahead of this Saudi card, and I'd be interested to see what he does with this Floyd Schofield. And he's taking it very seriously. So I think it's just nice that boxing is in such a good place. But I think America's ready as well to pop off. In what capacity, I don't know. Whether it's with Ring Magazine, PBC, however it is, but there's some huge fights to be made. Huge fights to be made. Yeah,
Absolutely.
great 2 weeks. What's coming up? Chisora Wallin this week, the last dance. Let's just touch on it. I think we've got to do that. Respect to Del by the last one in the UK, at least we think.
I don't know if it'll be the last one. I don't. I mean, if there's one fight for him, if he does well against Otto Wallin, I can see a fight with Francis
Dilliot.
Ngannou.
Oh, Francis.
Yeah, maybe if he goes well, I could see Francis Ngannou in Africa. Obviously, they're both African men. Obviously, Del Boy is or War. Chisora is now a British guy. I mean, I had an amazing chat with him last week, chatting about Farage and Donald Trump Jr. and reminiscing, if it's the right word, over when he went from kind of rogue or villain to cult status. Because obviously I was there around all the time. So I mean, it doesn't feel that long ago, but it was in terms of the young people like yourself in the sport now doing this. Where 13 years ago in Munich, he fought Vitaly Klitschko for 12 rounds. He slapped his face at the weigh-ins. He spat water in the face of Vladimir in the ring.
I watched it. Yeah,
and he had a fight with David A in the press conference all around, you know, what you'd call the old boys in boxing now, all around us. And when David Hay fled straight home from Munich, and Derek Chisora was interviewed by the police the next day, having been hit by a bottle by David Hay. And they go on to be friends, and David gets him in shape and manages him. And they have a fight at Upton Park. And David knocks him out, and there's a steel wall between them all week, and it's on the Luxembourg board because they don't have licenses from the Boxing Board of Control. We had a great time, 18,000 there. It was a great build-up. Derek, the tables overturned. When you think Tyson Fury 3 times, Joseph Parker, the 2 fights with Dillian White, the Alexander Usyk fight where he pushed him and bullied him around the ring for 6 rounds.
Yeah.
He's fought everyone, you know, Kubrat Pulev, and loads of world champions that he's fought, and he's had an amazing career. It's going to be hard for him to give it up. I think they should call it the penultimate dance rather than the last dance.
Yeah.
But it was a great time with him at the bathhouse last week. And he was he looked in fantastic shape, Matthew. Really did. Half his head shaved or cut short. Looked in fantastic shape, and he looks ready for this. And he's got hustle and bustle and bury his head on Valin's chest. He's only lost Valin to Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua,
Oh,
remember?
terrific fighter when
So
he's on his game.
Southpaw, awkward, big guy, believes
Yeah.
in himself. Um, it could be I think we're all going to be a little bit biased on the night, not wanting Derek to get hurt or to lose.
Yeah, I think I said it to him. I can't remember if I did or not, but he's one of the fighters I think could probably his head touches the pillow at night, and he really shouldn't have no regrets because he's done and fought everyone. Never,
Yeah,
never once you think you can never imagine him going, "Well, I'm not taking that fight. I'm not fighting him." You know, you could get. I think you could give him a day or two's notice, and if the money was right, he'd go, "Let's just run it."
absolutely,
Um, and,
absolutely right.
and I think that's what's endeared him to the UK audience and over the years to the point where you look at the fight before Joe Joyce, and I don't think many gave him a chance. He beats him, and you look
Yeah,
and go, "Wow, like this is rolling on a little bit longer." But we'll see. Otto Wallin's one thing. I mean, if he gets past Otto Wallin, I think we maybe see a Dillian White trilogy to wrap it all up for him, and that'll be fun as well. Like,
I think it'll be a big one if he has a last fight. In Africa, it'll be Ngannou. In the UK, Dillian White works as well for me.
100%. I think we've touched on everything there, pretty much
We
that I wanted
have,
to touch on.
we have.
We catch up next week once we get a bit more information on what's going on. Obviously, Eubank, Ben, we can touch on that later on, and once we have the press conference and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, what a time to be in boxing again, Gareth.
It is amazing. It's a great time. Great to have you back in the UK. I'll see you up at Wallin Chisora this week, or Chisora Wallin, for the
You
penultimate last dance.
you definitely
Just the
will.
penultimate dance for me. It's
The
the
last
penultimate.
dance, the last one in the UK, apparently. Anyway, touching soon, matey. Thank you for jumping on.
You're welcome. Cheers.
Appreciate it.